Hello everyone, Phil here. Welcome to DSPReacts and welcome to my very special Fight and Feast Marathon event. I have had a grand time so far today and we're not even halfway through the event. We're starting a Tiermaker ranking event here, and what we're going to do is try to rank fighting game franchises for the next hour. And I know there's going to be hot contention here. Seriously, people are going to be up in arms against their favorite fighting game franchises, like what's better than what. Actually, later today, we're doing a fantasy battle royale in WWE to determine the ultimate supremacy of fighting games. But what we're about to do is very factually, objectively, subjectively rank all of these fighting game franchises. Now, I'll be honest with you. I'm taking a look at some of these, and I don't really recognize some of them, and others I haven't played, so I can't rank them fairly. So, for example, we'll just go through these, all right? I know for a fact I could toss a bunch of these into the bottom category that I did not ever play. That's Blaze Blue. I never played that one. I can't read what that one is. I know that's King of Fighters. I'm trying to see which ones I recognize and which ones I totally don't recognize at all. That's Rival Schools. I definitely played Rival Schools. CVS I've played. Red Earth isn't even much about, like, it's not even really a fighting game, but I did play it recently in the Capcom Fighting Collection. I never played this Fighting Herd. What I'm going to do is try to dump as many games as I can down here into Battle Arena Toshinden I have played. I want to dump as many games as I can. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to head over to my computer quickly, and I'm going to do a dump of the ones I know I haven't played into the bottom, because the ones I haven't played, I don't really recognize the logos. So if I see them up close, I'll be like, oh, let me get those over there, and then we can come back and we can rank the ones I've actually played. It's going to be like 2 minutes, okay? Let me just do this fast, as fast as I can. Okay, so. Didn't play Arcana Hearts. Didn't play Chaos Code. I don't even know what that is. Definitely didn't play that. Didn't play Def Jam. I did play Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. I did do that. I did not play Fist of the North Star fighting game. I never played Melty Blood. I did play all of these, actually. Last Blade, I played that. No, I never played that one. I never played Rumblefish. Is that Fighting EX Layer? Bloody Roar I played. I never played Power Rangers Battle for the Grid. I did play Mark of the Wolves. I did play Skullgirls. I never heard of this one. I never played Double Dragon. Never played Waku Waku. I never played Power Instinct. I don't even know what this one is. I never played Tatsunoko. I can't even read that one, so I didn't play that one. No, I don't know that one. I don't play Aquapaza. No, I don't know what that is. Don't know what that is. Don't know what that is. Never played Castlevania fighting game. Don't even know what that says. Never played Project L. Never played Angel Ever. Oh my god, there's so many I've never heard of. Right? Rage of the Dragons, no. Fantasy Strike, no. Rising Thunder, no. Blackheart, no. Punch Planet, no. Fight of Gods, no. Umbral Core, no. Oh my god. Bleach. Gundam. Ranma 1/2. Duel. Omen of Sorrow. Martial Masters. Oh my god. Eternal Fighter Zero. I never heard of any of these. Glove Fight. Sonic Smackdown. What? Okay, I think I've played all of these. So, holy shit, right? Okay. I don't even know what most of those were. Did you guys see it? Like, how most of those, I'll be honest, these are like, a lot of those are like smaller time indie games, some anime style games. Like that Ranma 1/2 game, isn't that from like the 1990s SNES game, but like only had a Japanese release? Like how would I have even played that, right? You guys know me. I grew up in the 90s playing arcade games, and so I played Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, all the ones that were huge in the 90s arcades I've played. So you know those I'm going to have a lot to say and be able to rank properly. But some of these games, I never even heard of most of these things. Like, what are these, right? So, let's actually start. So, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, all right, it runs on the same game engine as Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. I don't know if it's CPS 3. I think that's the name of it. The graphics are absolutely great. It looks like anime. It really does. Just like Street Fighter 3 looks really, really fun with the anime style that it has. It has tons of frames of animation, like way more than previous Street Fighter games. From what I remember, the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fighting game has this stand-based system. And what I mean by that is you can use your supernatural companion to do fighting. And so they can do an attack, or they can come out and do like a move and a combo to extend a combo. And usually your stands actually extend your combos or do super moves as well for big damage. But some characters, their stands are different. Like some character, your stand is a weapon, and it like you can use like more damage or more range with the weapon, right? So the way I see it's a good game, but I never really played it competitively. I don't know that much about it. I wouldn't say it's terrible, all right? But also, I wouldn't really say it's like a competitive. I don't feel like it's like a highly competitive game. I could be wrong, but from my experience, it seems like a fun game you would want to play. It looks really nice, and if you like JoJo Bizarre Adventure, the anime or the manga, you probably really like the game. But I don't know anyone who played it competitively. I don't know a single person who played it seriously or competitively. Most people just kind of messed around with it in arcades, thought it was a nice-looking game, and that was about it, okay? Now, by the way, just because I put something into a tier doesn't mean that it's outright going to be in that tier forever. I want you to understand that as we continue to rank here, I may shuffle these tiers around and reprioritize, okay? All right, now, Mortal Kombat, okay? I'm going to be honest here. In the 90s, it was godlike. It was synonymous with gaming greatness. It was the adult-rated fighting game. Oh, by the way, I definitely could put my Ryu gloves back on for this. It was the adult-rated fighting game. It had gore, it had everything, right? Great combat, great variety of characters. It had everything that people wanted in a fighting game. People absolutely loved it, all right? In the 2000s, Mortal Kombat lost its way and became this console-based franchise. It wasn't competitive anymore. The gameplay was basically taking a back seat to the gore and the extreme tones of the game. It was still very popular and sold well, but very sadly, it kind of fell by the wayside when it came to games that were highly regarded. Like, it sold like crazy, but did you hear anyone talking about, oh, that really awesome experience I had playing Mortal Kombat? Not really. Usually it was like, did you see the fatality? Did you see the crazy amount of characters in it? But then, Mortal Kombat had a comeback. All right, recently, in this last decade, the reboot of Mortal Kombat 9, 10, and 11 brought it back into the limelight. Narrative-based campaigns that were super-duper well-written and very good. The Crypt, which is added content for those who want to play the game offline, but then also improving the combat engine over the 3 games. The rosters, including cool guest characters. I would say Mortal Kombat fell and came back to prominence. I would argue Mortal Kombat at this point is S tier. Like, I don't even know how I could argue otherwise. Mortal Kombat is the franchise that made narrative-based stories for a fighting game prominent in the last decade, correct? So, yeah, I would say Mortal Kombat is S tier, for sure. Okay, I don't know if you guys disagree. I think that's the case, okay? And I'm dressed like Ryu, and I think Mortal Kombat is S tier. Okay, I just received the tip. Hold on. Sarah to me, $2. If this support continues on a long-term basis, could you have 2 days off a week and have a work-life balance? Here's the thing. I am not foolish to think that this level of support that I've been getting for the last week and a half is going to last forever. A lot of this support is coming in from one person, by the way. And it's going to run out. You know what I mean? But I'm very grateful for it as it's happening. If we could get overall increased support from everyone, then yeah, I would look to have 2 days off. I definitely would think I would want to do is get a PC. But that's all something to take a look at. You know, if this continued for a month or more, then you'd be like, oh shit. But let's see what happens, okay? All right. Thank you for the tip, Sarah. Okay, continuing on. We've got Dead or Alive, all right? When Dead or Alive first came out in the 1990s, it was the simplistic fighting game. It was rock, paper, scissors. You had punch, you had kick, you had throw, and then with a combination of buttons, you had a reversal. Okay? So basically, this move counters this move. This move counters the next. This one counters the next. It literally was like rock, paper, scissors, the game. Now, originally, people hated this game, but people grew to love it over time. As things progressed with fighting games and as the games got visually better looking, I hate to say it, because yeah, there were a lot of girls with big boobs in this game. And I think a lot of the jiggle physics and shit. A lot of people are, oh, Dead or Alive with the jiggle physics, right? But Dead or Alive also, in its later iterations, for example, Dead or Alive, I want to say the last 3 since Xbox 360 era, actually had really interesting narrative-based campaigns that people really liked, okay? In addition, the combat has gotten better, okay? It has. Like, I played Dead or Alive, I think it was, I want to say 4, 5, and 6, or maybe it was 5, 6, and 7, whichever ones they were. And I actually liked them a lot. I thought that, for example, the variety of gameplay, you have Kasumi. She juggles you for giant combos and mix-ups. But then you have the biker guy who has grappling and everything. Like, it actually legitimately is a good fighting game franchise, okay? But is it as prominent as, say, you know, Mortal Kombat and the top tiers? Probably not. I would probably put this maybe around an A ranking. But we may change that, okay? We may change that. But for now, I'm going to say Dead or Alive is like an A, and we may adjust that, okay? Okay. I played Dead or Alive 5 in 2012. I skipped 6 in 2019. So 4, 5, and 6 are the last 3 that I played. Thank you, Derek. Okay. Killer Instinct. Now, this is very interesting, okay? When Killer Instinct first came out in the 1990s, it blew people away because actually the graphics of Killer Instinct were much better than any other fighting game at the time. They were better than Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, anything. But there was still 2D graphics. It was 3D models scanned into a 2D environment. And people liked that because it made it look better than all the sprite-based stuff, okay? Gameplay-wise, Killer Instinct on paper looks amazing. However, Killer Instinct, when you actually play it at a high level, you realize it's not that amazing. Why? Because most combos can be broken after just a few hits. If you know what you're doing, you can recognize the common combos and moves that these characters do and combo break them. So what ended up happening at high level in the 90s, at least for Killer Instinct, is that the game became very simplistic. Get 2, 3 very high damage hits that are unbreakable, then take a chance to extend your combo or just do a finisher, okay? The game played like a hybrid between Street Fighter and this unique combo system. It was good. I liked it, okay? And Killer Instinct 2 was very much the same. It wasn't until Killer Instinct got rebooted on the Xbox One that the franchise changed and became a more modern franchise in a lot of different ways. You know, the cast expanded and the gameplay expanded. However, when Killer Instinct launched on the Xbox One, it was a huge flop because the game constantly desynced. And so it wasn't even fun to play competitively until a few, maybe like 5, 6 months later, they finally patched it and fixed it, and then it actually became a really good game. Problem was, it was an Xbox One exclusive. And being an Xbox One exclusive, the competitive community had moved to PlayStation for Street Fighter. Because Street Fighter at this point was almost exclusively on PlayStation. So the competitive community didn't really adopt Killer Instinct in the modern era, okay? So here's the thing. In the 90s, it was good, but not great. It improved in the 2010s, but then because of console exclusivity, also kind of never reached the height of where it should have maybe been. You see what I'm saying? Like, I feel like it should have been better, but it didn't reach that height of success. And today, the game struggles with relevance. Like, today you say Killer Instinct, and people are like, huh? Do people still play that? And that's sad, because I actually feel Killer Instinct is a great game, but it just doesn't get that kind of respect anymore because it was on an exclusive console that a lot of people didn't get. All right? So I have a hard time even looking at this and saying it's above B rank, you know? And I'm not saying because of the mechanics. I'm saying it's just not a prominent fighting game. If Killer Instinct came out with a sequel that was cross-platform and played well, then I would give it easily an A. but I can't really give it an A when most people don't even play it. You understand? Okay. Guilty Gear. Man. See, here's the thing about Guilty Gear. All right? At first, when Guilty Gear first came out, I didn't like it. Why? Because it's very anime-ish. And quite frankly, for me growing up in the 90s arcades, and playing games like, again, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Guilty Gear didn't fit that mold or that archetype of what you were looking for with the aesthetics. However, I came to actually appreciate Guilty Gear as a competitive game over the years. This game is very hard to play at high level. I can tell you this right now, okay? It's technically tough to play at a high level. You need to know a lot of knowledge about each character. You need to have great execution. You need to know how to break certain combos to escape. What's the best time to use the break to get out and escape? It's actually very difficult to play. I respect people who are very high-level players at Guilty Gear. But I don't play it. I never really enjoyed it. I tried it. I thought it was all right. But I never really got into it. And probably it's because of when I started playing fighting games. Probably because of me being a Street Fighter player, Mortal Kombat, those 90s games. Guilty Gear came after. It was late 90s, early 2000s when it was console-based. It was very prominent on consoles. And I never really got into it that much, you know? So I respect the franchise. I absolutely do. I think it's a great competitive franchise, but there's no way that I could put it into the top tier. I'm going to put it into A. And some people are going to slap me and say, how dare you put it into A and not S? I'm sorry, I got to put it into A. Sorry. Okay. People are pissed at me already. I can already tell. Marvel vs. Capcom. All right, here's the thing. At a time when certain style of 1v1 fighting games were starting to get played out and dying, all right, Marvel vs. Capcom, and it's not really Marvel vs. Capcom, that's the one they put on the list here. Essentially, this is the Versus series of fighting games. So this is going to be starting all the way back with, say, X-Men, Children of the Atom, Marvel Superheroes, X-Men vs. Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom 1, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and then, of course, continuing further into Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and Infinite, okay? We can all argue about how prominent this series has been over time, but even in the 90s when this series was introduced, this got people very interested in watching fighting games. Because before the Versus series, fighting games were fun to play, but not necessarily the best to watch. But once you have two characters tagging in and out, assists coming in, big flashy super moves coming across the screen that are hitting for 1,000,000 hits, because that's the thing. Up to then it was like, oh, I'm Ryu, I throw a super fireball, 4 hits. Then it's like, the Versus series, Ryu throws the Shinko Hadouken, 472 hits. Okay, that's exaggerating. But you see the point I'm making is that it is the crowd pleaser franchise, all right? And also, it's super fun to play, although never necessarily balanced. And what I mean by that is a lot of the times in the Versus series, you will get characters who are way overpowered and can do insano over-the-top infinite combos that just wipe a character out after 1 hit. And then other times, you can have things that, you know, a character that's way underpowered and plays almost like regular Street Fighter. And that's not fair, obviously. That character's never going to have a competitive edge, but it's good to have that variety in the series, you see? This series has kind of been all over the place. You had games like X-Men vs. Street Fighter that were super fun to play. Then you get a game like, you know, Marvel vs. Capcom 3 that's super fun to watch, but broken to play. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, no one liked, right? So it's kind of like this series has definitely had highs and lows, right? It's very tough for me to grade because, see, I have nostalgia factor for the classics. If you're going to ask me about X-Men vs. Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom 1 and 2, top tier S rank, okay? If you're going to ask me about Children of the Atom or Marvel Superheroes, those are probably A rank, okay? What about Marvel 3 or like Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite? And I'll be honest, those are probably, for me, and I know you guys are going to hate me for this, those are like B rank, right? So, listen, I love the Versus series. I think that it's crowd pleasing. But if you look at its overall, how it's performed over the years, I kind of got to put it into A. I can't say it's S because there's definitely been low lows for the franchises. And at the same time, right now, it's non-existent. Maybe it'll come back with Marvel vs. Capcom 4 someday. But overall, I just feel like when it hits hard, but then sometimes it fails and flounders. It's, you know, I really do feel that it's going to be an A rank for me, okay? By the way, thank you, Eternal Napalm, who re-upped his membership for 2 years and says, hey, Phil, I'm excited for Street Fighter 6 and Final Fantasy 16 next month. Me too. Me too, my friend. Thank you so much for everything, for moderating and for your support of the channel. I appreciate that. Okay. Continuing on. My wife is making the next recipe for today. It smells really good. Ooh. Okay. The King of Fighters. Man, I have so many mixed feelings about the King of Fighters. Here's why. Back in the day, the King of Fighters was really awesome because it was the alternative to Street Fighter. If you didn't care about ultra gore like Mortal Kombat, King of Fighters was a game that kind of played like Street Fighter but had some interesting different gameplay elements that were very fun. At the very same time, the King of Fighters always was kind of unbalanced and a little bit broken, but at the same time, it had that fun element. Now, as King of Fighters advanced over the years, I feel like it kind of, the gameplay isn't as good. Like, I just played the last 2 King of Fighters games, which is what, 14 and 15 or something like that? I don't even remember. But both of those games are based on getting one hit and getting a ginormous combo that does like 70% damage. And then you can't come back because you're at a huge life deficit. And I don't like games like that. Marvel vs. Capcom 3, also I feel the same thing. With Marvel vs. Capcom 3, it's the same, one hit, oh, I win. I hate that mentality in a fighting game. I feel like at any point in a fighting game, you should have a chance to come back. How are you going to do that when the whole game's premise is one hit, giant combo, super cancel, or you're done, right? So I feel like King of Fighters started off really strong as a competitor to Street Fighter, but over the years, kind of floundered. And quite frankly, in today's climate, how many people are really talking about the King of Fighters? Not that many. And the game just came out last year, and in a competitive nature, it's not even in the discussion when it comes to top fighting games. So I'm going to say the King of Fighters, as much as I like the classics, like King of Fighters 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, insanely good games. Even you could argue 99 through like 2004, 2000, you know, with 5, mid 2000s or whatever, solid games. But when they get to the more modern ones, I just don't like them. So I'm sorry, but I know people are going to hate me for this. I got to put it as a B. Okay? Call me a jerk. You go ahead. Now, hold on. Because right now, some people might be saying, well, you have nothing in shit tier. You're correct. So let me put a game in shit tier right away. You ready? Eternal Champions. That game is crap. The only reason Eternal Champions got any hype is because it was essentially Mortal Kombat on console, but only on console. It came out as like a Sega exclusive game at the time. You could only play it on like the Genesis and or I think there was a Sega CD version as well. But the game plays like shit. It's really not fun at all. It's kind of like there's gore and you can say, oh, look at that, a cool gore move or whatever. But it's just not a fun fighting game. It's not balanced. I don't like the character designs. I think it's really a bad game. So I'm going to give it a C shit tier. So that way we have something in shit tier. Okay? Fair enough? Alright. Dragon Ball Fighters. Man, this is a tough one. Oh, man. Here's why Dragon Ball Fighters is a tough one. Okay? Does it have a cool story mode? Yes. Do the graphics represent what the franchise is supposed to be? An interactive anime of all the Dragon Ball characters? Yes. Are the fighting game mechanics sound? Yes. But there's 2 factors that hold me back when I think about Dragon Ball Fighters. Number 1, Dragon Ball Fighters, sadly, had bad online play, at least for the first year or so. I don't know if they've ever improved it, but the netcode was bad. It was laggy. It was teleporting all over the place. Even the online lobbies where you had to run around the lobby. You know, now they're going to use that same premise as Street Fighter 6 with the whole Battle Hub, but they tried to do this online thing with a Battle Hub system, and even that was laggy as shit. It was hard to have consistent matches or whatever. So because of that, it drove me nuts. I always wanted to play the game online. I was having a bad experience trying to play the game online. But in addition to that, again, once the game evolved to a certain point, Dragon Ball Fighters, again, became get one hit instant kill. Because it really plays like the Versus series in a lot of ways. So all you're trying to do is fish for a hit. Try to mix them up, go back and forth with cross-ups, try to hit them from behind, try to cause a guard break, and once you get it, here's the hit. Ginormous combo. Tag in your other fighter. Ginormous super. Done. You're dead. Whole character gone. Here comes the next character, try to guard break them. Oh, you guard broke them. That character's gone. I don't like that kind of competitive gameplay. It's funny because representative of what the anime is, I think it is probably like the best you could get trying to make a fighting game like that. But at the same time, I just don't find it funny that it's that fun competitively. All right? So this is a tough one for me. All right? If it played well online, I'd be okay giving it an A. I almost want to give it a B. I know people are going to be like, what? But again, I don't like the style of gameplay, and the online connectivity when I played it online sucked. Maybe if it played online well, but then I just didn't like the gameplay, I'd give it an A. But I almost feel like it's a B. But a lot of people are probably going to be really pissy with me if I say that. Like, if you look at Dragon Ball FighterZ versus, like, Guilty Gear, dude, Guilty Gear is way better. Marvel vs. Capcom, I'm sorry, the Versus series is better than Dragon Ball FighterZ, in my opinion. So I have to rank those above. All right, maybe I would kick DOA down to a B. In fact, you know what? In comparison to what I'm seeing, I'm kicking DOA down to B. I absolutely am. There you go. Okay? Let's continue. Injustice. Oh, man. Another one. Dude, some of these are so tough. Because here's the thing. I absolutely, positively love Injustice. I played a lot of it. I absolutely love the franchise. But the online play is shit. It is. It's laggy as shit. Dude, I remember playing with Solomon Grundy and YOLO Lantern and Aquaman doing crazy combos and having tons of fun. And then I'd try to play, and it'd be like slow-mo underwater lag bullshit. And you're like, what the fuck is this? It would piss you off, right? And I like the narrative basis of Injustice. It's a super fun game in the fact that it's got this crazy story of, you know, what would happen in an alternate universe if the superheroes abuse their power and everyone's trying, you know what I mean? Like, it's really neat to see villains as heroes and stuff like that. But at the same time, man, that online play kills me. Like, for example, I still remember Injustice 2, where you have characters like, was it Deadshot and Swamp Thing? And you could tell they're supposed to be played against each other. Like, Deadshot is a ranged character, but Swamp Thing can go around the bullets and do big combos. Oh, by the way, when you play online, nothing works. So the guy just spams shots and you can't ever stop him. And it's like, come on, you know. I feel like the game is good, but at the same time, there's absolutely no way I would say that Injustice is as good as Mortal Kombat. So I'm going to say Injustice is an A for now. Maybe that'll change, but I'm going to give it an A rank. Okay? Is this Persona 4 Arena? Here's the thing about Persona 4 Arena. I played it so little. I only played it for like a week. And you know what happened? Atlas hit me with copyright claims. What? I'm playing a fighting game. This is not a narrative-based game where I'm spoiling your game. You actually hit me with copyright claims for playing your fighting game for a week. Alright? And it drives me bonkers that that's the case. So, people are saying to get rid of this. Alright, fuck this. How do I delete row? There you go. I got rid of it. Oh, no! Did it throw those games back? It did, didn't it? Oh, no, it's okay because... Okay, it's okay. It kept all the games I've played up top. So as long as I stick with these games up to Primal Rage, we're good. Okay, I'll stick with the games up to Primal Rage. We end at Primal Rage. That's the last one that I played. These are all the ones I said I didn't play. Okay, we're okay. I thought it ruined the Tiermaker. Okay, anyway. So here's the thing. This very well could be a sound game. But I got a grudge. Atlas, you guys are dicks. You're hitting people with copyright strikes for no good reason. People who even abide by your rules. So guess what? This could be a great fighting game, and it gets C shit tier because you guys are shit level content or producers. You are. To hit people with copyright strikes over just enjoying your game when they're not revealing it. It's like it was a story element of a role-playing game. It was a fucking fighting game. So enjoy your shit tier rank because you deserve it for being a dick. There you go. Take that. Take that. I'm sure they don't care, but take that. Okay. Virtua Fighter. Hui. I feel like when Virtua Fighter first came out in the 90s, it was the first 3D fighting game before Tekken, before anything else, okay? So it was kind of a trailblazer. And it was a very technical game, and over the years, the game evolved to be even more technical. So it's fun, but it also takes an incredible amount of investment of time and effort to learn. It's a very tough game to play. So in that regard, it's kind of like Guilty Gear. But at the same time, if you were to ask me today, what's more prominent, Guilty Gear or Virtua Fighter? I'd say Guilty Gear. So just on that premise, I have to put it into B tier. I can't think that Virtua Fighter would be above a B tier. No one talks about it. Almost no one plays it. You know, if it had stayed prominent, I'd probably put it into A tier, but it never stayed prominent. It died, and that's the end of that, you know? Okay, is this Grand Blue Fantasy Versus? Here's the deal about Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. All right. I played it, I thought it was all right. I didn't love it. I definitely feel a game like Guilty Gear is a better game. It's more technical, takes a lot more skill to play. I never really played Grand Blue Fantasy in a competitive environment. I played it online a few times. I was doing all right. I kind of dropped it. It's hard for me to evaluate a game that I haven't played that much of. And the truth is, okay, when you're going to evaluate a game like this, you have to look at the landscape. So how many people are playing Grand Blue Fantasy Versus as a competitive fighting game today? And this game's, what, 2 years old? Not even? Do you see it in official, like, major tournament rankings as a major event that's going to be held? It's always a side tournament or whatever. Sadly, it never caught on. So, I'm not saying it's a bad game. I'm just saying, like, almost no one even talks about it. And when a game is so not prominent that people don't even mention it in the discussion of modern fighting games, it makes me hard to even consider it as a good game, right? Now, like I said, it had fair mechanics, but it also didn't have much unique about it. Oh, it was 3 years ago. Derek says it was actually 3 years ago. Jesus, it doesn't even feel like 3 years ago. See what I mean? Like, I thought it was like 1 or 2 years ago. I don't know. For now, I'm going to put it into... I'm serious. I'm going to put it into C tier, but I may bump it up. Street Fighter. Well, we all know that that's just, you know, that's C tier. Yeah, right. Do we even need to talk about it? The innovator of competitive fighting games, the game that comes back strong. Every time that it's down on its luck, it comes back again. The game that has spin-off after spin-off. The game that inspired every other fighting game. I mean, Street Fighter has to be S tier. There's no way you can even debate it. Tekken. Immediate S tier. Why? Literally, it's the most prominent 3D fighting game. While a lot of other fighting game franchises struggled with the 3D landscape, Tekken excelled. Does it use 3D walking and everything super prominently? Not as much as other games, but at the same time, it's that perfect hybrid of 2D and 3D. It's been around since the 90s. It surpassed all its other contemporaries, including Virtua Fighter that came out around exactly the same time, and Dead or Alive. Tekken is the game that's played at high-level competitions, not the others. So Tekken, great story. Yeah, right, it's convoluted, but it still has a great story mode, right? Great characters. Usually the online play is pretty decent. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to say Tekken's S tier. You can disagree with me, but I think it is. Okay. Red Earth, barely even a fighting game. That's absolute C tier. Mostly played as like a single player experience. So just on that basis, I don't really feel we can even push it past the lowest tier. Capcom versus SNK. Now, here's the thing about Capcom versus SNK, all right? In the late 90s, early 2000s, you had two iterations, CVS 1, CVS 2. They were incredibly prominent at the time. CVS 1, wasn't a great game competitively at all. It was kind of an unbalanced game where literally flying jabs, you could jump and press jab in the air, and it would beat a reversal Shoryuken. It didn't make much sense. It feels like they kind of messed it up. When CVS 2 came out, it's like they redid the entire idea for the game that they had. And CVS 2 was super duper good. It had multiple grooves that play completely differently. It had a wider cast than the original game. Everything was better in CVS 2. And a lot of people for the longest time held CVS 2 as the competitive standard for 2D fighting games. However, this series ended after only 2 iterations and never continued. There's no CVS 3. I wish there was. I would love a CVS 3, but there hasn't been one. And based solely on that factor, it's going to get A rank from me. If this series had come back and continued at some point, I would say it's A or S. But sadly, it's been in retirement for what, 20 years? So it's got to be an A rank for me. Okay? Continuing on, because we got to get through all this. We got to get all the way to Primal Rage. Okay? Rival Schools. This is interesting. Capcom in the 1990s was trying to delve out of the sprite-based gameplay and make some 3D-based games. They licensed Street Fighter characters for the EX series, Street Fighter EX, but they also had their own series called Rival Schools United by Fate. Some characters from Rival Schools eventually carried into modern fighting games, like actually Street Fighter V had a Rival Schools character in it, correct? But Rival Schools is an okay game. It's not great, it's not bad. It has elements of the Versus series. It has tag-in, tag-out elements, similar to, say, the King of Fighters. But it's not amazing. And also, I remember for a fact there were 2 of them, Rival Schools 1 and 2. It's not a very balanced game. There was always overpowered characters. Also, it wasn't really played very competitively in tournament scenes. So, I mean, I'd be really, really hard-pressed to give it an A. I'm going to give it a B. All right? I can't even read this one. What does it say? Darkstalkers. Oh, wow. So here's the thing. I seriously love Darkstalkers. In the 1990s, when all fighting games were about these humanoid fighters fighting each other, and the biggest fantasy character you would get was something like Blanca, you know, to play a game where everyone was a monster, and the fact that it tied in almost with like Universal horror movies. You had the vampire versus the mummy versus the wolf man versus the merman or the creature from the Black Lagoon. Like, that was really cool. But the gameplay elements are super sound and play very similar to Street Fighter, although a little bit inferior to Street Fighter, but still really good. But in addition to that, there we go. In addition to that, you've also got really good graphics. Like, the graphics hold up to this day. The 2D art is just as good as, say, the Street Fighter Alpha series. It came out around that time, the Street Fighter Alpha series. So, the one thing that drove me nuts about Darkstalkers, for some reason in the United States, it was never considered a serious competitive game. And I don't know why, because I've played it semi-competitively online, and I think it is a fun game. But sadly, I have to rank it kind of based on prominence and popularity, as well as like everything else. Graphics are good, gameplay is sound. It was a good competitor to other games in the 90s, but have we seen a new Darkstalkers game in a while? No. When was the last new one? Vampire Savior 1 or 2? When was that? The late 90s? I wish there was a new Darkstalkers game. I would play it, but based on the fact that this franchise has been dead for the longest time, I've got to give it a B. Plasma Sword. This was another attempt for Capcom to take their games into 3D. However, Plasma Sword was mostly console-based, and most people didn't play it. It actually, in my opinion, wasn't a great game. It was very unbalanced. I rented it a couple times and played it, and I thought the graphics were good, but I didn't really like the gameplay elements of it. So just based on that, I'm going to put it into C tier. Okay? I can't see this one. Hold on a sec. I literally can't read the logo. Hold on. Cyberbots. Oh. Once again, Cyberbots was an experiment by Capcom to try to make a Street Fighter, a fighting game that really wasn't a fighting game. It was more based on the narrative. It's definitely not a competitive game. Cyberbots gets a C rank for me. Art of Fighting. Here's the thing. Art of Fighting is nostalgia. All right? When Street Fighter was prominent, and also when Mortal Kombat was prominent, SNK was trying to come out with other games to compare. And if you were to tell me you know, all the classic SNK games, you know, I would say, I'm looking at some of them right now, actually. I would sadly say that Art of Fighting, sadly, is not a very good game. I actually feel the other SNK fighters are better. Competitively, Art of Fighting is kind of a very slow-paced, non-balanced game. It's got a lot of flashiness. This game featured extreme, like, zoom-in close-ups during certain combos. Like, let's say, for example, you would do this move that was an advancing kick with the main character, Ryo. If it hit, the camera would zoom in and show a bunch of extra hits. Oh, look at this fancy graphics zooming in or whatever. But it really wasn't about the gameplay elements. This franchise was not very competitive. When these characters were then adopted to be characters in the King of Fighters, then the characters became more of a competitive fighting game. So sadly, as much as it is for history purposes, I really feel like Art of Fighting is one of the absolute worst games from SNK. Alright? Compared to that, The Last Blade, I feel, is a step up. The Last Blade is a franchise from SNK that featured samurai using swords and weapons. And it wasn't gory like Samurai Showdown, but at the same time, it had really sound gameplay elements. So I'm going to give that a C, or excuse me, a B. Although it never really got mainstream prominence, I still think it's a great franchise, okay? Fatal Fury. Fatal Fury absolutely, positively is a step up from Art of Fighting. Fatal Fury had many iterations. Its first iterations were very similar to Art of Fighting with the zoom in and big flashy stuff. But over the time, games like Fatal Fury Real Bout and Real Bout Special, right, got better and better. Added new elements, two planes where you could move in the background and foreground and kind of attack characters from the side, which was kind of unique and interesting. The cast got bigger and better. You look at like more anime style plot lines. It was a good franchise for sure, but again, didn't reach competitive prominence until the King of Fighters, which came kind of after. So I kind of have to say, there's no way that I could give Fatal Fury, you know, above a B rank. I just can't, okay? Samurai Showdown. Fun game. Lots of gore. At a time when everyone liked Mortal Kombat, to see a game with samurai that would hit each other with swords and sharp weapons and blood would squirt out. And sometimes you could do a finishing move where the enemy would be chopped right in half and in a very stylized, anime-ish way, goes zoop, and just the body goes, cuts in half and slides apart with blood squirting everywhere. It was neat. Okay? But, very, very primitive gameplay engine. Until like Samurai Showdown 4, when they started adding auto combos and other things, it was a very primitive game. I did not play the more modern one that came out maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but the franchise does stand its place in history along with other SNK games, so I'm just going to put it into B tier. World Heroes. Man, again, here we go again. So World Heroes, it's a unique series. It combined the idea of Street Fighter, meaning characters from all over the world, different nationalities, right? Combined with the idea that they're all mythical heroes from time. But at the same time, the gameplay elements were kind of bit off of Street Fighter. It didn't do much unique, alright? And it only had a couple out there. There was World Heroes Perfect, World Heroes 2. There was like 3 or 4 of them. And then they kind of dropped the franchise. So it was good, but not great. So again, I'm going to put it into the B tier. B tier is now getting very hefty with games, as you can see. Soul Calibur, alright? If you were to ask me, of all the 3D fighters out there, what's the most prominent? Tekken, for sure. What's the second most prominent? Soul Calibur. Soul Calibur has great gameplay, really good cast. It's had an ongoing, interesting narrative ever since it was conceived. The fact that it's a fighting game with weapons rather than just fighters with their hands. And it's evolved over time to become way more complex. The deal is, I'm no good at Soul Calibur. I suck at it. But I love the franchise. Like, I like Nightmare, Siegfried, that kind of gameplay. Voldo. I've played with various characters in Soul Calibur over the years and really enjoyed it. I feel like Soul Calibur 1 on the Dreamcast, to this day, is still one of the best fighting games of all time because games like Street Fighter 6 are emulating it. Did you know the World Tour mode in Street Fighter 6 is essentially copying off of the standard story mode in Soul Calibur? It is. In Soul Calibur, you created a character. As you played through the World Tour, you earned the abilities of the characters you beat. Does it sound familiar? And then you would customize with weapons, with clothing, and then at the end of the game, you had a totally customized character to finish. Yeah, that was Soul Calibur did it first 20 years ago, and now Street Fighter 6 is doing it. So, Soul Calibur, for me, A rank, baby. Gets right up there. What does this say? I can't even read this. Oh, God. I really can't read this one. Can someone tell me what that says? If not, let's go to Skullgirls. I can't read that. Skullgirls. Okay, I've played it a little bit. And I'm not in love with it. But at the same time, the gameplay mechanics are sound. But the fact that every character is like a chibi designed anime character, it definitely limits the series. I've also heard Skullgirls has been through the ringer. There was all these controversies around Skullgirls. Like, I guess one of the guys involved in it was some kind of a pest or something, and a lot of people hate this guy. But then, here's the thing. I respect Skullgirls for being through the ringer, but at the same time, when I played it, I didn't really like it. So I'm just going to give it a B rank. And you can disagree, and that's okay. Oh, people are saying this is Fighter's History. All right. Fighter's History, sadly, it's a game franchise that was, I think it was like Tecmo or whatever. They were trying to compete with SNK. They were trying to compete with Street Fighter. They were trying to compete with everything. But it's kind of a joke. I played Fighter's History on the SNES a year or two ago. And if you didn't see that playthrough, this game is really bad. It's like really rough around the edges. It doesn't perform well. It's not competitive. You know, when people say, ding dong day, ego dog day, how about a rose? It's like, what the fuck? It really is a really bad bootleg knockoff style of game. Yeah, I'm going to give it, sadly, the lowest grade, a C tier rank. I'm very sorry. Garu Mark of the Wolves. Now, this is interesting. Garu Mark of the Wolves is when Fatal Fury tried to reboot itself as a modern franchise in the early 2000s. It used an improved game engine that looked very similar to the graphics of Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, and it actually played similar, except instead of parrying, which is tapping forward on your joystick, it had something called just defending, which meant you were blocking on perfect timing by tapping backwards on your joystick. It was they really were trying to copy Street Fighter 3, okay? It's a great game. It's very, very fun. However, it never continued, which actually baffles me because it was well received. People liked it. I think it's because the time it came out, arcades were dying. It came out in the late 90s, early 2000s. Arcades were dying, and so it was hard for it to get any kind of market share. And then consoles weren't really ready to really handle that kind of game yet. So I almost feel like if it had come out later, it would have done better. And if it had come out earlier, it would have done better. The time it came out kind of destined it to fail. It's a really good game. Anyone ever played it? Rock Howard. It's the son of Geese Howard, who's like the series antagonist. And he's a good character. And there's also other follow-up characters in there that went on to King of Fighters prominence. Like T-Zoc, the wrestler, is in King of Fighters as a king of dinosaurs. So it's a really great game that ended up fusing into King of Fighters. But I don't really necessarily feel like it's any better. It's a tough decision because I'd like to give this an A. But at the same time, it had such short-term success that it's hard for me to put it into A. So I'm going to put it into B. And you could disagree with me, and that's okay. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters. It's an interesting premise. Take a hot IP, right? The Ninja Turtles, the 90s, they were the hottest shit in the early 90s. Make a fighting game out of it, okay? And the fighting game's not half bad. There's two versions. There's actually the Sega version and the Nintendo version. And each one is unique and different with different gameplay elements and a different cast. They're both good games. The problem is they were only on console. They weren't in arcades at a time when these games needed to be in arcades to get any kind of prominence. Did they sell? They did, but they were never a mainstream seller like Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter or anything at the time. Why? Because no one played them in arcades. So kids would hear about it and run out and want it or rent it. But they weren't like insano great over-the-top sellers because they didn't have that kind of word-of-mouth feel to them. They're not terrible games. At the same time, they also are incredibly unbalanced. There's characters, like one or two characters in each one of those games that are way overpowered compared to the rest of the cast, and no one else really even stands a freaking chance to actually compete. So, based on the fact that the game was not very prominent, wasn't very fun competitively, I gotta give it the lowest rank. It sucks because I actually feel like it's not a bad game, But, like, I look at these and I'm like, these could be played competitively. These were in arcades. These had market share. This game did not. You know what I'm saying? I know some people will hate me for that, but I gotta be honest, okay? We're getting now into the nitty-gritty, the final few games. We've got, I can't read this one. Is this Bloody Roar? I think this is Bloody Roar, correct? Bloody Roar was prominent during the early PlayStation era because it was humans that could transform into creatures. You could transform into a tiger or a wolf or a beetle creature or, you know, I think one of them was like a dinosaur or something like that. Right? Like over-the-top crazy stuff. And it was fun. Don't get me wrong, it was fun. But it kind of was a gimmick. And at the time, I do feel that there were other fighting games that were a little bit more prominent and competitive that were directly competing with this one for the 3D space on PlayStation. So I'm not in love with this game. Sadly, it had a sequel or two because it sold all right, but it never really got mainstream prominence. All right? So I'm going to rank Bloody Roar a B. I'm gonna rank Battle Arena Toshinden exactly at the same way. Again, it was well known. It had 2 sequels. I think Battle Arena Toshinden had 2 and 3. It might even have 4. I played them all. Interesting graphics for the PS era. Good gameplay. But again, didn't get that mainstream appeal because it was console based only. And sadly never really broke out of its shell of just being a PlayStation game. Just like Bloody Roar had 2 or 3 iterations, kind of died out after a while. I really enjoyed Battle Arena Toshinden. I owned a bunch of them, but I'm just going to give it a B rank along with Bloody Roar. Okay? Fighting EX Layer. Okay? Fighting EX Layer, I played a few years ago. This is the spin-off game from Street Fighter EX, and quite frankly, I'm surprised Street Fighter EX is not in here, because that's its own franchise outside of mainstream Street Fighter that should be ranked separately, but they didn't do it separately. Fighting EX Layer took gameplay elements from the Street Fighter EX series, but removed the Street Fighter characters, and instead tried to do its own thing. But Fighting EX Layer fucked it up. They added in these grooves or styles that, sadly, I hate to say it, just weren't very good. They were unbalanced, and everyone just ended up picking like the super armor style with 1 or 2 characters that had grapplers or super moves that would blow through everything. The game was completely unbalanced and a huge mess. The sad fact is, the Street Fighter EX series, which was unbalanced, is better than Fighting EX Layer. So I hate to say it, but Fighting EX Layer is a humongous fail and has to go into the bottom tier for me because it just is not a very fun game. Okay? Hold on a second because I can recognize 3, but I don't recognize 2 more. I want to see those names as we wrap up our rankings here. Let me see here. We got... What is that? Oh, I don't even know what that is. Oh, I didn't play these. What is this? Okay, that's nothing. That's nothing. I don't even know what that is. I don't know what that is either. I only know these. Okay, we know these 3, and that's the end of it. Yep. Okay. Cool. We are at the very end here. Because I was looking at it, I was like, what are those? I realized those are other ones I just didn't recognize. I didn't put into the tier that I never played before. Because those games I just moved, I never heard of. All right, 3 more. Fighting Vipers. This is kind of interesting. Fighting Vipers was a game made by the same people who made Virtua Fighter. And what they tried to do was make a spin-off game that played a lot more like Tekken or Street Fighter, rather than the more technical aspects of Virtua Fighter. Because a lot of people at the time said they liked Fighting Vipers, or excuse me, they liked Virtua Fighter, but it was too hard to play. So Fighting Viper was kind of like the easy mode Virtua Fighter. You see what I'm saying? It had some guest characters as well, if I remember correctly. There were some crossover guest characters from other games, and it played pretty good. It had nice flashy moves and everything, but it never got prominence. It's kind of sad that it never got prominence, because I actually feel like it was a decent game, but just on the fact that no one talks about Fighting Vipers or really plays it anymore, I've got to put it into the bottom tier. You know, it's definitely Virtua Fighter's better than Fighting Vipers, okay? Clay Fighter, oh man. There's 2 Clay Fighter games. No, there's 3. There's Clay Fighter, is it like Clay Fighter 2 Judgment Clay and Clay Fighter 33 and a third? I think there's 3 of them, okay? Clay Fighter 1 attempted to take 2D fighting game gameplay from Street Fighter, but use stop motion animation with claymation. It has characters like Bad Mr. Frosty and The Blob, okay? Pretty unique and interesting characters. This is a clown character as well. All right, Clay Fighter 2 tried to actually buy into comedy. So if Clay Fighter 2 had things like Clay Fighter 2 Judgment Clay, supposed to be like Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and it actually had a rabbit that was a robot cyborg like the Terminator, you see? But it had other kind of cheesy things in it as well. So essentially what Clay Fighter was trying to do was buy into everything. Gameplay like Street Fighter, gore like Mortal Kombat, but it's claymation gore, so because it's claymation gore, it's allowed, it's not M-rated. Pop culture references like everything else going on at the time, right? And then it advanced with Clay Fighter 33 and a third or whatever, which I believe was like the N64 version or whatever. However, these games, again, no arcade release, never really saw prominence outside of NES consoles, or I should say NES, Nintendo consoles. They played fine, but they were a little unbalanced. For sure, there were characters that were way better than others. That it wasn't a competitive game. Like, you didn't see serious tournaments for Clay Fighter. But it also wasn't shit. So just by the fact that it wasn't really shit, I am going to put it into the same tier as, like, Toshinden and all these other games. So that's going to be a C tier, or excuse me, a B tier for me. All right. Primal Rage, the last one on our list. The last game. And it's funny because there's a game missing. Someone just said, what about Shaq Fu? You're right. There's definitely prominent games missing from this list, but we just spent an hour ranking them all. I think it was the thorough list, okay? Primal Rage. You're in prehistoric times. You're either controlling a dinosaur or an ape or some kind of prehistoric creature. You're using things such as teeth, clubs, spines. In some cases, I'm not kidding you, belches and vomit, piss and shit to actually attack your enemies. There's the one of the apes actually pisses on the enemy as a special move. He grabs his dong and has a big arcing piss arc that hits the enemy. I wish I was joking. It's real. It's a real game, okay? When you've played, if you like dominated your opponent, the life bar would permanently decrease, and it was a unique thing for that to happen. While all of the games had life bars, you know, this would have permanently decreasing life bars and stuff like that. The game had fatalities like Mortal Kombat, okay? However, if you, on paper, this all sounds good. But if you actually played the game, you would know it's actually one of the most frustrating fighting games to ever play. It has some of the hardest special moves ever in history. It would be like, hold these two buttons, press down, forward, back, up, circle. It's like, what the fuck is that? And that's just to, like, fart. That's how you fart. And like, what? That's how the game was. It was really weird, the way that they designed the game. While other fighting games were going for more simplistic inputs, this one went, like, over the top, okay? For, like, crazy inputs. And the thing was, they actually were kind of banking on this franchise to be popular at the time of, again, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat. They thought, oh, kids will love it. It's got dinosaurs and apes. It's like King Kong versus Godzilla. But it's got adult-oriented stuff, too. The kiddies will love this game. But it really didn't do that well. It was okay. It did okay in arcades, but it never even got, like, a franchise out of it. It came out, and there were some toy tie-ins or whatever, and it just kind of fizzled out and died. Mostly because people who played it, I'd much rather play Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat than this game. It's so hard to play that it's just not, it's not fun to play. You understand? I'll watch someone play it, but I don't want to play it because the controls suck. And that was the huge shortcoming of Primal Rage. And sadly, I hate to say it, compared to all these others, I'm going to give it a C tier. And you might be like, what? Yeah, it really is a shit game to play. It's fun. It's a fun premise. It's a fun idea. It's just not fun to play. And they screwed it up. Okay, so that was an interesting hour of me talking. I need a break from talking now. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, my ultimate tier maker ranking of the fighting games that I've actually played. All right, Eternal Champions, Persona 4 Arena, Primal Rage, Plasma Sword, Cyberbots, Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, Red Earth, Art of Fighting, Fighters History, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters, Fighting Vipers, and Fighting EX Layer, C tier. B tier is going to be JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Killer Instinct, World Heroes, Dead or Alive, The King of Fighters, Dragon Ball Fighters, Virtua Fighter, Rival Schools, Darkstalkers. I can't see the other one because my camera's blocking it. By the way, I was just told by my wife our next recipe is ready, so we're going to try this out momentarily, which is exciting. Samurai Showdown, Fatal Fury, Last Blade, Skullgirls, Garu Mark of the Wolves, Bloody Roar, Ballerina Toshinden, and Clay Fighter. Those are all B rank for me. In the A rank, getting to the upper echelons, we've got Guilty Gear, Marvel vs. Capcom, Injustice, Capcom vs. SNK, and Soul Calibur. And then God tier, the holy trinity of fighting games that are all coming out with a new game in 2023 this year. Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Tekken. Take it or leave it. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this ranking of fighting games, right? Hoy, that was a lot to get through. It took an hour, but I had a great time doing it for you guys. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Leave me your thoughts as you watch this on demand on DSP Reacts. Leave your thoughts. What do you think? Do you agree with my rankings or not? Or is there something you staunchly are against? You disagree with my take on it? Let me know. Or if you agree, let me know. I'm very interested. This is the kind of video that I love discussion on. So if you guys could leave comments on this video as you watch it on demand after the fact, I would absolutely, positively love that. But in the meantime, for those who are here on the live audience on the stream, I certainly hope that you guys enjoyed it. I had a fun time doing this video for sure. I lost a bunch of viewers. Seriously, when I was playing Street Fighter, I had like 600 viewers. Now I'm down to almost like 480 or something. But at the same time, I like this stuff. I like ranking stuff. I hope that you guys enjoyed it for my themed marathon. And that's my take on fighting games. I want to hear your disagreements or your agreements. All right, thank you all for watching. Until the next Tiermaker, peace out and see you then. Thanks a lot.